Kirker Math. All right, here we are back again with our next lesson for Module 1 for 6th grade math. We're on Lesson 1.2. In this module, we are going to be focusing on being able to compare and order positive and negative numbers by using a number line. If we were in class, we should be able to verbally explain to our partners, but at home, hopefully you can still talk it out to someone and explain why one number is larger or smaller than a number, and using specific verbiage. We have to have a specific way we have to talk about this, okay? So the first thing we're going to do in our note takers is take some notes because we have a new word here, which is called an integer, okay? And then some review words with these inequalities that we need to remember. So first, write down the definition of an integer. The integer is the set of all whole numbers and their opposites. And we need to remember that a whole number includes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're whole numbers. They're not decimals. They're not fractions. They're counting numbers, but they also include 0. So basically, we have all of those numbers plus their opposite, their negative counterparts. So integers include -1, -2, 0, 1, 2, and so on. Okay, and again, pause the video if you need extra time to write these things down. The next thing we need to remind ourselves about are these inequalities. So an inequality has the word equal in it, but this prefix in means it's kind of similar to like not. So inequalities are symbols that can tell me what they're not equal to, okay? So we've got greater than symbols that always open to the left, less than symbols that always open to the right, and then our normal equal sign. Hopefully in elementary school, your teacher kind of showed you these inequalities. This is review, and if they did, maybe they showed you that inequalities are kind of like little monsters or crocodiles. They eat the bigger number, which means that their mouth is towards the bigger number. Okay. All right, now that we have our vocabulary down, we're ready to start talking about some real world things. So positive and negative numbers, or integers, can help us understand our world. For example, with temperatures, weather reports talk about negatives in the wintertime. This is an image of Yellowknife, Canada, in January. And Yellowknife, Canada is usually an average of -15 degrees Celsius. So what does that mean? When somebody wakes up and they look out the window and they look at the thermometer or they look at the weather app and it says it's -15 degrees Celsius, what does that mean? Well, hopefully you're telling yourself that that means that it is freezing. It is below 0. In Celsius, water freezes at 0 degrees. 0 degrees Celsius is when water freezes. 32 degrees Celsius is when water freezes, or sorry, not Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature that water freezes in Fahrenheit. So if it is -15 degrees Celsius, that means that it is 15 degrees below 0. And it's very, very cold. Okay. So now we're going to take a look at some more places. So now we have Narushka, Russia. This is a picture of Narushka, Russia. And we're going to compare it to that temperature in Yellowknife, Canada. So here I have a number line to help me compare. So Yellowknife, Canada was -15, but the average temperature in January in Narushka, Russia is -30. So if I put that dot on my number line, I should be able to see that -30 is way farther left than -15 on my number line. But what does that mean? How do I know which place is colder? Now, some of you may be saying that Russia is colder because it is farther away from 0, but you have to remember that 20 degrees is farther away from 0 than -15, but 20 degrees is warmer. So it's not just about its distance, it's about its placement. The farther left you are on a number line, the colder or smaller the number. And in this case, a smaller number means colder. The farther right you are on a number line, the warmer or larger the number. So when we start to talk about these numbers and comparing them, we need to use words like that. So instead of just saying that negative 30 degrees is 15 degrees more more colder than negative 15, we would say something like it's 15 degrees farther left on the number line. It is farther away from 0 towards the left side than negative 15 is. So therefore it's colder. Okay, things like that. All right, let's compare 2 more cities. So here we have Harbin, China, which is around negative degrees Celsius in January, and International Falls, Minnesota, which is about 10 degrees Celsius. Which one is warmer in this case? So again, I'm going to use my number line to help me. Oh, it's not positive 10. Sorry, we had this problem in class too. That's supposed to be negative 10 degrees Celsius, not positive 10. All right, so here is Minnesota. And here is Harbin, China. And we want to know which one is warmer. But again, when I'm using my words, I'm not just going to say that negative 20 is colder because it's farther away from 0. I'm going to say that it's colder because it's farther left on the number line. Negative 20 is farther left than negative 10. I could say something like it's more negative, so therefore it is colder. Things like that. All right, so let's take a minute and practice this. So pause the video and answer these 2 questions. Circle the number that is less in each pair, and then answer the word problem about Cassie and Mark. Cassie bought a t-shirt for $20 when her bank account was at $15. And Mark bought a pair of shoes for $40 when his bank account was at $30. Whose bank account has a lower value and why? Go ahead and answer those in your notebook, and then again pause and come back and we'll talk. You can check out your answers. All right, so here are our answers. So -3, -6, and -5 are all smaller numbers than their counterparts, and that's because they are farther left on a number line. Down here, if I look at Cassie, she is owing $5. She basically doesn't have $5 in her account to pay for that t-shirt. And Mark, though, has negative $10. He owes $10 to pay for those shoes. So therefore, Mark has the lower bank account value. He is more negative. He owes more money. All right, so we're going to switch off of temperature and money and start looking at elevation, because that's another place in the real world that we see positive and negative numbers. So when we're learning about elevation, we're talking about its distance above sea level or below sea level, whereas sea level is 0. Okay, so we're going to talk about some places that are above and below. So Sierra Nevada mountains, where we live, are higher than sea level. We are at about 14,505 feet above sea level. Mount Everest is one of the highest places on Earth, and it's 29,032 feet above sea level. The Dead Sea is lower than sea level. It is negative 1,410.8 feet, so it's below sea level. The lowest place in the United States is Death Valley. It is at 282.2 feet below sea level. So we're going to take a minute and you're going to sketch out this drawing on your notes, making sure that you include your vertical number line. So draw your vertical number line. Okay, so I'm going to outline in yellow what you need to draw, because it doesn't need to be a Mona Lisa painting. It just needs to be a sketch so that we can work on it. Okay, so draw that number line with the numbers. Draw an ocean over on the left, and then where your sea level would be is a dotted line. And then you're going to sketch some spot that's under the ocean, some mountainous areas, and then an area that goes below sea level that's not underwater. So go ahead and sketch that out. And when you're done, we're going to go ahead and ask some questions about some things. I'm going to have you draw them on your picture. All right, so I'm going to have you draw on your picture these 3 things. So I want you to draw a person, Joanna, who's 7 units above sea level. I want you to draw a mouse that is 3 units below sea level and a boat that is at sea level. So take your time and go ahead and draw those 3 things. So pause the video and give them a draw, and then come back and see if you got it right. All right, so if you drew Joanna anywhere along this line, you did it correctly. That would be 7 units above sea level. So she could have been standing on the mountain. She could have been a superhero flying through the sky. She could have been parasailing or in an airplane. As long as it was on that red line, you were good to go. Now our mouse friend needed to be anywhere on this line. So it could have been hanging out with the guy. That's hard to see that in the ocean there. Could have been hanging out with this guy over here in the grass. It could have been burrowed underneath the ground, or it could have been swimming in the ocean. And then the last one would have been a boat. And as long as your boat was along this line right here, that would have been correct. So it could have been floating in the ocean. I know boats don't float directly on top, but you could have drawn that. It could have been sitting beached up on the beach here. Or it could have been flying in the sky, but as long as it was along that pink line, you were right. All right, and then the last thing you're going to do is practice right here. You're going to go ahead and compare and practice these numbers. You have number lines on your notes to help you, both vertical and horizontal. But tell me which number is greater than, less than, or equal to the other number. And then you have another set here with a word problem talking about somebody walking into the sea. So go ahead and do those 2 things, and then you guys will come back here to see your answers. All right, so here we have our stuff. -6 is less than 5. 0 is greater than -3. -1 is greater than -4. 2 is equal to 2, and 5 is equal to 5. And then on this question, Brian would be at -25 meters, and Nancy would be at -35 meters. So Nancy is lower because she is 35 hops below 0, or to the left of 0 if you're doing a vertical or a horizontal number line, but therefore she is lower. And that's it. Come back and join us for lesson 1.3.